You are listening to the People Centric Podcast, where we talk through the toughest challenges that people face at work and give practical advice to fixing those challenges. Thanks for joining our movement to create workplaces that are happier, healthier, aligned, and empowered by putting people at the center of all that we do.
Hey, people-centric leaders. We're really excited to join you for this episode today because we're going to talk about something that we get really excited about talking about, and that is planning and goal setting and leaning in and high performance and all of the things, except this is not going to be one of those motivational podcasts. Today, we're going to do a demotivational episode. We're going to tell you why you maybe not want to do that stuff, why you might want to run away from planning, why you might want to stop putting so much pressure on yourself and stop setting goals for yourself. Stop setting goals. Did you hear me what I said, Diana? Isn't that weird? Stop setting goals for yourself.
But I already set 13.
You already set your 13 goals for yourself?
Uh-huh.
The ironic thing about this is we literally just got off of a call too where Diana and I were setting goals, like personal goals and things like that. We're so into that as leaders. And so I'll tell a little story as we jump into this topic. And so what do we mean by being a demotivational podcast? What's that going to look like? But it's this. So we used to do a mastermind. We used to do a live version of kind of our podcast. We did a live version of it where we would bring in different topics and we have discussions, and we did it in Springfield where our base is at, and we would have people that would come and we would discuss different topics. And I've had several requests to bring that back, including one yesterday, by the way, everyone, but it got killed by the pandemic, as many things did, and we switched to the podcast, which is great. We love seeing you all here, or not seeing you here, whatever it is. But we used to do an episode every January called Get Out of Your Own Way, and it was a personal strategic planning session. And you would sit down as a group and we would ask questions and you would ponder those questions, and we'd give everybody in the audience time to think about, okay, what's really important to you? What are the values that are important? What are your strengths? Who are you going to work with? And all these things. And you came away with a one-sheet strategic plan for who you should be and what you should do for the course of the next year. And the first year that we did it, I remember I led the first session, and doing it, I was like, as we were doing and giving people time, I was making notes to myself furiously of oh, this is really good. I could dive into these goals. I'm really driven. I'm going to figure this stuff out, and laying stuff out. And then who am I going to partner with and all those things. And then the next year, and I made some progress towards those things. I did some stuff. And then the next year we did it again, and then jumped back into it. And the next year we did it again. And the next year we did it again. And I found myself by the third or fourth year almost hating the session. I'm trying to figure out why. I liked hearing people's goals, and people would attend, and it was probably our most popular session of the year. So I'm not saying it was a bad goal setting idea, but I found myself not liking it as much. And it took me a while to figure out why do I love planning? I love thinking about the future. Why am I not liking this? And what I realized was that there are times, and especially at the end of the year or the beginning of the next year, there's times where maybe our cup's a little bit empty, and we stop, and the last thing that we need to do is to try to power through it, try to lean into it. And so I recently posted a post on LinkedIn that talks about this, and I show an empty cup, and I say, if your cup's empty, as a high performer, your solution to that might be to power through. I'm just going to lean in even harder. I'm going to set goals for myself. And you might be going into the end of the year or the beginning of the next year, or even in the middle of the year thinking, okay, I'm going to gung-ho. I'm exhausted, but let's set some goals, and that will fill my cup. Let's really think about how can I solve this more. It might be related to your life at work. It might be related to your life at home. It might be, how do I spend more time with my family? I'm going to lean into this. I'm really going to create meal plans for myself every single week and really execute that at a high level. I'm going to set up a game night for myself every Tuesday in the family, and we're going to do this. And I'm going to go out to see people that I hang out with 5 times a week. I'm going to set all these goals. And sometimes when your cup is empty, and this is something that I'm learning through therapy, that maybe the best thing that you actually can do is to stop. Stop doing all that stuff. Take a step back. Take the pressure off of yourself, and maybe just give yourself some space. Get out of your own head. We talk about the session was called Get Out of Your Own Way. We probably needed to do a counterbalance session. Sometimes you just get out of your own head and take a step back and just observe things around you. Go for a walk in the woods. Don't listen to a podcast while you're mowing the lawn. Don't try to set up a goal for three things you're going to talk about at the dinner table or with the kids for about school. Don't set up all these things for yourself. Maybe sometimes it's just exist and give yourself space for that. And when you do that, sometimes surprising things happen. And I'm slowly learning through therapy and discussions that I've had, which I believe, by the way, everyone should be in therapy. I think it's very beneficial for everyone. I think we should normalize that for everyone. That when I recently went out to one of my favorite places is there's a Wilson's Creek battlefield near my house, and it's just a beautiful like there's a forest. It's beautiful. It's a wooded area. There's a creek that runs through it. It's very relaxing space for me. And I went for a long walk and I wanted to walk this long loop around it, which is a good 5 mile walk around it. And so when I got out of my car, I was like, okay, what do I need to do? Let's find three good podcast episodes that I can listen to. So I'm learning on the way so that I'm multitasking and all that. And I confess I did start that way. And then I switched it to music because I thought, well, I should just relax a little bit and switch it to music. And then I thought, why do I even need that? And I just took everything out and just experienced the walk and the woods and the wind. And sometimes it was cold and sometimes it was hot. And sometimes I noticed, wildlife, or sometimes I heard the water or anything. And just being there and realizing I'm not trying to accomplish anything right now. I'm just walking. Was really refreshing. And it was shocking how much it put fuel back into my tank for that. So that's what we wanted to talk about. We talk so much about goals and being oriented, and you're listening to a podcast right now. Like, we recognize there's a threat to this. So if you're all listening to this podcast every week and you're trying to lean into what am I going to learn from People Centric and how am I going to apply that to my job? And what we're kind of telling you is take a break. Maybe you need to take a break for a little bit. So we've got Diana and Bethany with us on this episode. And, we're the three of us aren't here to lecture to you today. The three of us are here to confess to you today. So that's the other part. We're with you on this. We also think we should lean in and set goals and do all the things, but let's talk about sometimes where we don't. So let's start off a little bit. Bethany, I'm going to start with you on this one. Does this impact you? I already know the answer. Does this impact
go ahead.
you?
Tell me. Will you please tell me? I'm so tired, Don. I need you.
I'm so tired. Tell me what to do. I mean, do you fall into the trap of like really leaning in and saying, I want to do more? I'm just going to do more. If I do more to do less, that'll take the pressure off. If I just solve the puzzle, then I will be okay. And what does that look like for you?
Yes, I do try to do that. Yes, if I could have everything planned, then in my head, I don't have to plan as much later, but that's not really how I work, because then if I create more capacity somewhere, then I tend to fill it with other things to create lots of efficiencies and things like that too, whether that's at work or at home or both and everything in between. And so, yes. So, I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And I like that you connected to the at-home piece,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that, you're a working mom and you've got stuff that you're trying to. I know you love most of your kids and you're really you love all of them. You're terrific,
Love them.
terrific mom, terrific wife, terrific, and all the roles that we play. But that makes it hard. And I like that you linked it to that, because a lot of times we just link it to work and we forget about the other stuff.
Yeah, this year the kids really wanted to do an advent calendar, and in the advent calendar, I was like, they just made it. But I wrote the things inside of it, and I didn't really think about this because what that meant was there is every single night of December, there is an activity of some sort that must happen. And it's really bad.
Do
So
you also have Elf on the Shelf? I feel like there's so much
Oh
pressure.
my gosh, I can't do it. That was one thing I already knew. I can't do this. But yeah, so I was like, well, I'm going to change that for next year. So there's those things happening. And then there's also all of the end of the year stuff that we want to do and be efficient and wrap up and do really well and all of that too. And so it's been, to be honest, the last week and a half, 2 weeks have been very full. And some of it too, I feel like the way that I've talked about it with people is, well, I think our team, we really do like to take some time off during the end of the year. So a lot of us really do, we take off these last 2 weeks of December, which is amazing. And I know a lot of people don't get to do that. But that also means that we are piling a lot into 2 weeks of December. So we're basically, I feel like I'm still doing 4 weeks of work, or however many weeks are in this month. I don't know, into 2 weeks. And so it doesn't feel like a lot gets, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of no's. It's just like all the yeses into 2 weeks. Right. And that's really, a lot of that's just my own doing. And so, so I think there's that. So yeah, it's been really hard. I'm very tired. My mental capacity has been pretty low, but, with that said, so I feel like I don't like to do this typically, but I have been working in the evenings more the last couple of weeks than I would like to do, and not getting very much sleep. And so that, again, like Don said, this is me confessing to everybody that is happening. And so I did get some stuff done. And so the other night, so then I think that's definitely impacted how I've been at home for sure, with my kids who want to do their advent calendar activities. Because it's Christmas, of course, they want to do all of those things, and puts undue stress on them as well, too, because I am stressed with all of the things that I have chosen to do and the way that I've prioritized my time. And so, anyways, I got some stuff done. And last night, I didn't have to do that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to sit at home. I'm putting my work bag away, physically away in another room. Everything's closed and shut down. I made dinner, and I just sat with my kids and I watched like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and we ate spaghetti and meatballs, and the living room was a mess. There was dishes all over every place. Our house feels like a wreck, but I was like, wow, this is so nice to just sit and hold a kid after I ate my dinner and watch, something that doesn't require any thought. And I'm not Christmas shopping while I'm doing that on my phone on the side, all of those things. And so yeah, it's really nice whenever you can disconnect, but it's like, how do you do that more proactively? I don't know. Right now, I don't know.
And I think when people listen to these podcasts, because I do this, I'll say it a different way. When I listen to podcasts, I'm looking for advice and new things that I should put into place. So when somebody says, hey, you should not only have an advent calendar, but you should also have tips for your children and all that stuff, I hear that and I go like, that's a great idea. Like, I want to do more activities for my kids. I want to create some moments. I want to create some magic. So let's really book our holidays. I was talking to somebody recently who did like a Disney vacation with their small kids, and they did what I was I hear a lot of people who do specifically Disney vacations, which is wonderful, but they're like, there's so much stuff to do. We have to fill our time. And they take like your typical like work attitude, high performance attitude with you on vacation and on home, and say, these are all the things I need to be able to do. So I'm going to book everything. So at 6 a.m., everybody gets up and we're going to go get to the bus and take the magic caravan into the Disney, and we're going to do this ride, and we're going to do this ride, and we're going to go to this dinner. And then everybody's just really, really exhausted by the end of the day. And there's not moments. And most people that I know who take Disney vacations, who do it regularly, talk about how valuable it is sometimes just to do a day by the pool. And a lot of times it's funny. It's the day. If I said there's one activity I've heard people who do Disney vacations that they like the most, they're like, the weirdest thing that we did that was the most fun is we just used the pool at the hotel. And we went down there and with the kids for like 3 hours, and we sat by the pool and did nothing while the kids just played, and that was our best time. It's those moments. So it's not all. I know we're looking for levers on our world. Like, I want to go all in on this thing, but there's like dials, and I'm not telling you don't ever plan activities with your kids or don't plan your day, but I just think there might be opportunities to dial that back whenever you're exhausted and take moments, right? Now, Diana, I'm always pressing you to set goals in your life. If you know Diana, if you listen to her regularly in the podcast, she needs a lot of direction, and she's not really planned out. She's not very buttoned up. So we try to give her some order in her life. Does that describe you pretty well, Diana?
In some alternate reality, maybe. Sure. Yeah. No, I was sitting here listening to Bethany and laughing because, well, this whole thing is very relevant. Because, well, my husband and I, we do lots of goal setting, and we have 5 different categories, and we goal set in November, and we do capital planning. We literally call it capital planning, and like our budgeting and stuff. So we are goal people, and here's the other part. We don't not accomplish them. we accomplish them. So we're very driven, we're very type A. And so we always have a lot of goals, but we intentionally set goals in November and then don't have any goals in December. So our goal setting runs from January to November. And we intentionally don't do anything in December because we know we need some space. And it's not, the space is not easy. It takes us a little bit to like get into it. I still am like, oh, I gotta do this thing and I gotta go. And Jimmy's like, no, we don't have goals in December. We don't have to do that thing. So yeah, I think the goals are really nice and really important, but did you just, Dawn is holding up a sign that calls me a nerd.
You're gonna have to unmute yourself just so people can see your sign.
Just to see the sign. I'm sorry. Oh, you thought this was for you? I'm sorry. I was just holding a piece of paper. I wrote that for a different reason earlier today.
Listen, I know that I'm a nerd and the nerdery comes in handy. Okay. You all benefit from the nerdery.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
But I do think that we go really overboard, right? We're those people that everybody hates and is like, why are you doing this to yourself? And there are times where we look at ourselves and we're like, why did we do this to ourselves? But we still continue to do it. So we have intentionally built in space for that now to breathe a little bit because we are crazy and we know it. And this time of year gets insane.
I like that you're saying you didn't get rid of it completely. Like it's really impressive. It was when you got into the 5 categories. You remind me of that Geico commercial with the caveman and they're playing like the games with the families and he's like, well, you got to get 6. They're guessing the words and he's like, well, not that won't be hard for us. And she's like, well, let's skip that one. And he's like, we don't skip, Tina. Like he's like, just really intense about the game. Like we win these games. We don't just play games. We win games.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. We don't just set goals. We crush goals. Like we're not going to set something that isn't going to get accomplished. You want to run a marathon? We'll run that marathon. You want to pay off your student loans? Those things are going to be gone. You want to buy a new house? We'll buy a new house. Like we set the goals and we accomplish the goals. And
didn't you hurt yourself running because you didn't? You want to share that story?
No, I don't have a story there. I don't know what you're talking about.
Someone else I know named Diane ran too far. I should change the name farther than that.
I did. I had a goal to run 10. We had first started running. My goal was to hit 10 miles. I was determined to do it. I did. I did it, but I was in extreme pain. And I ended up hurling on the side of the road because it hurt so bad. And then the next day I got up out of bed and immediately fell over. And I was like, I'm going to have to go to the hospital. I think I need surgery. I need knee surgery. This is how I am taken out.
So maybe less goals. Is that what we're saying? Less goals?
Yeah, just like reel it in a little bit. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Don't do it if it's hurting you.
Yeah, you have to listen to yourself. Like
listen to yourself.
Listen to your body, listen to your mind. If you're exhausted, like if it's just not there, sometimes you just have to call it. Bethany, you were talking about earlier, like even when especially like we're recording this in December, we know this will come out in January, but there's certain times where we will meet with a client, especially this time of year, where we will sit in meetings and everyone will show up and everybody's in the mindset of like, well, we're going to have some time off. If you get time off, like some of our clients do, some of them don't, by the way. Shout out to those of you who don't get time off that have to keep running things, like, especially like our hospital friends and things like that. Like kudos to you for doing that. You keep us running and you keep all that. So also we take care of yourself through that. But if it's just not happening, like, do we force the issue? Do we push the team? Like, how do we deal with that as a team, as facilitators?
Yeah. I think that's to the conversation you're referencing. It's just been just being able to read the room a little bit and say like, what's the headspace of the people that we're meeting with right now? And if we really push it, is it going to be super effective, or are we just going to say, hey, like, what do we need today? And is it just like there have been meetings this week where I've just sat with people and I said, how was your Thanksgiving? And what are you hoping to do or not do over Christmas? And how's your family and what's going on? What's going on there? And how do you feel? And it's, it's just very, very like light, And so I think that it's like for some people that feels like, well, then that's not efficient. And why did you even have that meeting? Right. And so it's like, but sometimes it's just you have to you just like let the space happen and let people just talk about other stuff that are not work related and know that like, hey, we'll pick this back up and we'll be really, we'll be really driven and we'll get some things done moving forward. And some of it's just like being okay with like, hey, if we made a little bit of progress today, that's great. Even if we didn't get as far as we thought we did, that's okay. Like we can make a little bit of progress and that's great. And then sometimes it's recognizing that like, hey, maybe somebody packed too much into the week. And if they were late to the meeting or they didn't show up and it just seems like they're stressed out, then it's like, hey, maybe we just don't need to do this today. That's totally okay. Let's find another time where we're going to be all in a better headspace. And so that's been something that it's just like keeping an eye out for those things and having grace for all of that.
I love that word grace. And, and I like how you kind of referenced that too. And not just, we're talking about this almost like almost burnout like thing, like in that kind of a scale, but it also happens on a potential daily basis for people, right? There's just moments where you're like, I'm not feeling this in this moment, or like you sit down and we work, I've got to get this thing out. I was working on something for a client a couple of weeks ago, and it was a lot of work and a lot of detail effort. And I was sitting there, I'm like, I'm going to crank this thing out. And after about 2 hours of sitting there working on it, I realized like I had been going over the same section for the last like 45 minutes, and I had written so much more the first hour, and I ran out. And so I just stopped doing what I was doing, got up, went and got myself a drink, like went outside for a second, looked around, and then came back. And then boom, I was working so much faster. Like we feel like we're productive sometimes when we are trying to power through things, but we're so unproductive, just taking those breaks. Also, you reminded me too, Bethany, during COVID, when we were first trying to figure out, we were first at home, as everybody's at home, everybody has to go home. And we're trying to figure out how's that going to impact us? How's it going to impact our clients? And what are we going to do? And so we were having meeting after meeting after meeting, just planning things like, what do we do? Who do we call? Checking on each other. What do you need? All of those different things. And we went to jump in on one meeting, and I remember jumping in on the meeting, just feeling like we really have a lot to still work out and jump into this. And our kids started jumping in on the calls. You remember this call? And we actually took a picture of it. And I don't remember who jumped in first, but the kids literally took over the call. Like they just took over. It became a Zoom call with all like just kids taking it over, completely took it over. And our team just it was the end of the day, and we just let it happen. Like we just all stood back and just watched it as they made faces. Because if kids on the Zoom call, if you haven't seen a kid on a Zoom call, the first thing they do is they're not looking at each other, they're looking at themselves and the faces that they can make and the noises that they can make and all the different things. And they just had the best time for 5 minutes, 10 minutes in the Zoom call with each other, just playing around and goofing off and joking around. And we sat back and watched that. And I remember thinking to myself when that was over, like, I wasn't thinking, oh my gosh, we didn't get to talk about any of the goals or anything that we were going to set up. I remember thinking to myself, like, I feel so much better just taking a step back and not being in my head for a second, not having to focus on the goals of taking it to just to recharge for a second. So let's talk about that a little bit. Like, how do we recharge? If we're not setting goals, if your cup is empty, what do you do?
Well, I think there's like, my therapist just taught me about all of this different kinds of rest, right? There's like mental rest and physical rest and spiritual rest and nature rest, right? There's all these different kinds of things. And sometimes your body just needs like 2 or 3 different things. And so you kind of got to try different stuff to figure out what kind of rest you need. Sometimes you need a rest from like scrolling on your phone, like we do that thing at night where we're like, just so tired, let me just like scroll on my phone for hours. And that isn't actually rest for your brain. That's not like a mental rest. So I think to me, it was recognizing that there are different ways to rest and different things that my brain and body need. I'm like a runner and I work out 4 times a week, and I'm like that person. And I was like, no, part of that is rest for me. And my therapist was like, yeah, but you need physical rest sometimes. Just like stop doing that. And to me, working out is like mental rest, which I think I need a lot more than physical rest. And she was like, no, sometimes you just need to chill, right? Just like stop moving, take a break, don't hit the step goal for the day, don't lift weights that day, like do something peaceful. And so I don't know. I don't know if I answer your question, but I think it's interesting that we need to recognize that there are lots of different types of rest and that sometimes you might need to switch up the way that you rest to actually feel rested.
I really like that. Yeah, just knowing what the different things are because yeah, I'm just thinking about the things that I've done in the past couple of weeks where it's like I felt exhausted and for different reasons in different ways. And so what are the things that I did? Has it solved all of my problems? No, but in those moments, just knowing what you need, like I think there was a day where I was like, I have to lay down and take a nap as soon as I get home. And so I did that, and then I got up and I made dinner and I was like, okay, I feel better. I just needed that like 1 hour. Or like Don was talking about earlier, like just not listening to podcasts and things like that. There's been times the past couple of weeks where I've just like, yeah, my tendency is to have either music on or a podcast or a book or something like that. And there have been times where I've just been like, I'm just going to turn this off. And for me, like I was going to spend my time driving and just praying. And for me, like that's huge for me. And then, like last night, I think it was like, okay, I haven't really like connected with my family, and it just to like a really like light way where it's like, okay, we're not here to like, I don't know, like it's not a holiday. And so everybody has come over. It's like, hey, we're going to bring over like our Christmas gifts to you and just like see your puppy and just like chat for like 30 minutes, and like that was so refreshing to me this week too. Or, so those are just like a couple of ways for me that I've just found it in the week where I'm like, okay, those are things that have sort of like helped me disconnect or rest my brain. Or like literally last week, Diana, I don't know if you saw my eye, probably because I was looking at a screen too much, like my eye was like red on the side, like like bloodshot, and it hurt. And I was like, okay, I have a problem. I've probably been looking at my phone or a screen or something too much and not getting enough sleep.
That's
Like
a problem.
that's a problem. Yeah.
It's inconvenient sometimes when that
Yeah.
happens because you're like, but I have so many things to do. I've got to get ready. I can't rest right now, so I got to power through it. And I promise, like anybody listening to this podcast is trying to get better on something. So you're all very motivated people, I'm guessing. Everybody who listens to this is going to be really motivated. Like, I'm just going to power through it. But to realize the answer might not be to power through it. And it may not even be to do anything. It might just literally be a mindset. I know I moved into a new house this year. And so I've had it, and it's a brand new house. So I've got projects everywhere through the house. And it's like, I've got to get things up, and it's like, okay, there's nothing on the walls in the living room. I got to put something up there and there. I got to set up the outside. I got to do this and and at first moving in, it was kind of fun hitting those different projects. But then after about a month or 6 weeks moving in, I would come home and then I'd be like, every time I get home, I'm like, okay, I'm home from work. What's the next thing I need to work on? What shelf do I need to put together? What thing do I need to hang up? What do I need to build? What's the next thing? And I realized like over time, that just stop. I don't have to do any of that stuff. You don't have to feel like now you're busy. And now it's like as those projects have wound down significantly, where there's less stuff I have to do or get ready. I've learned that some of it's just a mindset of taking pressure off of yourself. Yeah, when I get home, if I want to sit down, last night I got home and ate dinner and then sat down in front of the couch and turned on a documentary and fell asleep. And it was glorious. And I realized, and giving yourself just the mental time. And I was like, I really should be doing something. I should go do this. I should get ready for this. I should go buy this. I should go think of whatever the things are. And just giving yourself the space to say, no, it's okay in this moment. If I got better at doing that more often, you wouldn't have to do the bigger, like I got to take 2 weeks off and go do a Argentinian sort of spirit quest or something significant, right? To be able to fit in. I can do things just as I go. I can kind of refresh, but it goes anti the way I think. I don't know. It's a trick. It's like you're trying to hold on to it so much, it fools you into thinking like that's the solution, right? I'm just going to outperform my way out of this time. That I like your example of running, Diana. I think about like my knee really hurts, but I'm just going to fight through it. I'm going to get through it, and that serves you really well in a lot of ways. but not in
I
that
mean,
moment.
it actually made it way worse, right? Because then I couldn't run for weeks. I could barely walk for like a week. Do you remember me hobbling around the office and people were like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, I ran too far, which is so stupid. Like it's so
When
it
your
was
goal was to be in peak physical condition and you couldn't walk for a while. So I'm also like saying like, so for those of you who are thinking like, well, I just got to hold on to it because I have so many things to do. Some of the message is like, but you're not doing it.
right.
You're not in your best place to do that. So just call it.
Yeah. I hit one goal and then it sacrificed all the other parts of my life and it was not worth it.
Yeah, it's like, is it worth it? Yeah, I mean, I do that a lot with like, our team knows like we have a fixer upper, and so like I love doing our house projects, but I do get that way too, where I'm like, I have to get all of this done, and I'll stay up and I'll do it, and it's gonna be amazing, and I'm gonna spend all this time on it, and then it's like when I do that too much and I don't take a step back and just take a break from it, then it's like to the detriment of, yeah, my family, my work, all of those things. Cause I'm just like not in the great, the best brain space. I'm impatient because I didn't get enough sleep. I'm, all of these things. I'm stressed. It's just, so it's like knowing when do you actually like have to stop, just take a breath and not keep pushing.
Yeah. And there's times to push and there's times not to push. We're not saying don't plan. I joked around and said this is going to be a demotivational podcast. The idea isn't to not plan or not to set goals for yourself or not to plan activities for your kids or plan your vacations or things like that. That's not what the idea is. The idea is to listen to yourself and know that those things in life that make you successful are not levers, they're knobs. And sometimes you should run yourself at a 9, and sometimes you should run yourself at a 3. And sometimes you should turn yourself off and just go for a walk in the woods and just do nothing and give yourself that space because that refills your battery.
And I've started because I am such a planner and such a goal setter that I now plan rest, right? And I know that it's part of the plan and I have to do it to make myself successful because if I don't do it, it's not going to be quit holding the nerd sign.
Sorry. The nerd
I
sign
am a
came up
nerd.
again.
I am, but I can't do it any other way. It's in me. But yeah, so now I don't say like on the third week of July, I'm going to rest. No, it's like, it's just built into the plan, right? You have to go for hikes. You have to do yoga. You have to do meditation. You need to stay in therapy, right? All of those things are like part of the bigger plan to make sure that I accomplish the things that I want to accomplish.
Yeah.
Very good.
Well, I was going to just add, like, I think hopefully you also have people in your lives that can help you recognize when you need rest too, and can kind of advocate and like tell you the truth and say, hey, like, feels like you're a little on edge, or hey, it seems like you're pretty tired. What can I do? I'll just say, even like, let's use a work example. This past week, I've been working on a deliverable for a client, and it takes a lot of time and energy. And Philip on our team, he called me when I was at home one afternoon or one evening this week, and he said, hey, I was looking at your calendar, and I know that you're working on this thing this week, and it's really full. And hey, can I help you with that some? Like, I have a little more time this week. And I was like, and initially I was like, oh, thanks for offering. Like, I think I'm like almost done. I think I've got this. I'm totally okay. I'll let you know. And I went and I did what I was doing, and I worked late that night on it. And I was like, I hit a point where I was like, okay, I'm so glad he called me, because then the next morning I was like, Philip, help me. Help me do this. I can't do it. And so, so good. Just an example, I think, of at work too, somebody who was like, hey, I see this and I see that maybe you need a little support here, or maybe you're not resting the way that you need to rest. And like, let me give you an out, or even if it's just somebody who's highlighting it for you when you
Yeah.
can't for yourself.
And it's cool, and kudos to him for just being observant, right? We have to watch each other's back on that stuff and just see it and look at it and say, boy, it seems like, because you've cranked those things out before, like the product that you were putting out, it took us, I have heard us spend a lot more effort, like as a team, that specific project, like it seems like it's been a lot harder, but I think it's because more of us are tired of the time of year and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it takes you longer and it takes more work.
Yeah, I hope people do that for me, right? And I think if we did more of that for each other, people would get to less points of burnout and feel less like they have to have the world on their shoulders. And yeah, I think it's important that we recognize that in others. So I love that he did that for you.
I know. Well, and I won't give it like the specifics of it, but I mean, there have been times where I think about like my husband who were like, I'm just like running and I'm going and I'm driving and I'm like, I'm going to do this thing and I'm really passionate about it. But I'm also like totally depleted. And there've been multiple times where he's kind of just stepped in and said like, hey, you can't keep going at this pace. And I want to fight a little bit and be like, but I can and I will. And so
Yeah.
until I can't anymore. And so I'm really thankful for the people in my life who help me in that way. Help me know.
Also, I love that you just said, I want to fight a little bit, because I think that is a lot of high performers' natural inclination is to like, oh, I don't need the help. I'm just going to get through this. Like, if you leave me alone, I can get this done faster. Like, I'm going to get it. But no, I think it's important that you listen to the people that you trust and hear them and be like, okay, you're right. I should take a minute. I will accept your help, Philip. I will accept your help, husband. Like, thank you for recognizing that in me. And while my brain initially wants to fight you on it, I'm going to listen to you on it.
Yeah. I'm going to end us on a quote. It's a quote from one of my favorite books, Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. That is a long read. So those of you who are super motivated going, I'm going to go pick that up and read that as a resting. That's a super long book to pick up. So maybe not like if you want to, great, but just no pressure on this. But the quote is this: if you saw Atlas, the giant who holds the world on his shoulders, if you saw that he stood, blood running down his chest, his knees buckling, his arms trembling, but still trying to hold the world aloft with the last of his strength, and the greater his effort, the heavier the world bore down upon his shoulders, what would you tell him? And then the answer is to shrug, to just shrug. And you can imagine there, if the world's on your shoulders and you shrug, then the world moves. And I think that's what a powerful message of sometimes when everything is on you, the answer is not just to work harder. Sometimes it's to take a step back, take a time out and unplug yourself or get out of your own head for a minute and just to relax and look at the world around you and take it all in. It could be somebody that's special to you. It could be going playing catch with one of your kids. It could be just going for a walk out in the woods. It could just be laying on the couch. It could be vegging over a documentary. It could just be enjoying a good hot dog or a bowl of chili or something that you like this time of year or whatever that is. But we just want to remind you that the things that we talk about at People Centric are really good best practices, and it's okay that sometimes you don't follow them. And that's actually the best practice of all, is to all those things in moderation. The world is about balance, and it's not about levers. We all hate that on our team. I think all of us would love to have the levers and not about the balance, because balance is harder. It's easier to do more of this, do more of this, do more of this, but sometimes it is about balance. And if your world is out of alignment, then maybe just take a second, take a breath, and don't forget to do that from day to day. So thanks all for joining us. If you've got other ideas for topics, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us how you're doing. We like to hear those stories. Occasionally we hear from somebody saying, hey, I listened to the podcast and this really helped me in this. And we love to hear those stories. That drives our team. That fills our cup as well. So fill our cup, send us feedback. We'd love to hear from you. And thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to the People Centric Podcast. We are so grateful for you joining us every week. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to share on your social media with everyone that you know. It really does help us. If you would like to contact us, I have put our information in the show notes. Please reach out anytime. We love hearing from you. We will be back next week with a new topic. Until then, be well and lead well.